right, so let's go over day 17. So I talked about this last week, so here's my implementation of the for each, and I want you to use it with your blog content and some other related content on your site or your app, okay? Because this pattern is very common to create either arrays of objects or objects of arrays, whichever, and implement them into your site. So find another area besides the blog content, and I'll show you mine, right? And then also I want you to implement at least one example of adding elements into your HTML with JavaScript with create elements versus what we've been doing in the past where we're using string concatenation. So I want you to implement that. So let me show you how I did it, and then you can work on it. So in my case, let's just first look at the blog post. Okay, so the blog post itself did not change from last time. The structure of it did not change. It's still objects in the array. Okay, so it's still there. The difference is that I called it first. Let me go find it. So here's the function that I have to call my blog post. Now where I call it from is kind of interesting. So let me actually show you the output. Okay, so if I'm back here, and here's my site as it is now. And right now when you click on our blog, you're going to see these, and this button is going to go away. So that's my blog post, and then my blog button goes away, and I'm going to put a show or hide blog, something like that. So where I implemented my for each for that blog post, which I'm still playing with how I want this to render into the page, and I'll come back and talk about that in a minute, is I did an add event listener, okay, for a click function with an anonymous call to the for each. Okay, so it's an anonymous function, but within the anonymous function, first I call blog post for each, and then I call it with my an array. Okay, so that's how I did it, and then I use this and I got this straight out of MDN, these references, these variables where it says top. And the reason this code is here is actually to remove that button once you've clicked on it. Okay, so this is because you have to have the top reference to the container, to the parent, and then the one that was nested was called our blog. So if I show you that in HTML, okay, so it's right down here. So here's the containing, or the div that gets the blog post. And then when I build the blog post, let me show you that. So this is, so now we'll go look at this, right? So this is the add event listener that was on the button, and it called the for each. Okay, and then it got rid of the button itself. So then, and that's the code we were looking at a minute ago, was on the show blog post, the for each. And this is the video that showed you this. And then I've just been playing around with different ways to have my markup or my blog post come in. So this is a little bit of play, but the idea here is that you're going to create a new variable, and I called it new div, and then document.create element, the name of the element. So this could be pretty much any element. And then in that new, in this case a div, I set a class name. And then I also created some new content with the item title. So if you're wondering what that is, because of the reference here, item, with the item coming in over iteration, this would then be the item title would be pointing here. Okay, sorry, on that line. So you can kind of pick the rest of this up in that same mode. I also did create a BR, which I was trying to figure out why, because I was trying to make it show up twice why it wasn't. So I know it's something in the way that I was doing this. But once you create your div and then your content that you want inside of it, the last step is you actually have to say append child somehow. In this case I said look at the div ID of blog post and then append that and append child for this new div that I've created through this process. Okay, so that's using the for each, That's using changing to the for each. This is using an event listener to call the for each. This is creating dynamically through code the elements that then are the HTML that gets appended into the div. Okay, so I want you. So that's the first task, as I went over here, is to implement that for each for your blog content and then some other related content in your site, and I'll show you what I did. And then I already went over this, was adding elements through JavaScript. Okay, so the other thing that I did is I ended up doing a for each to create these items right here, all of them. Sorry, not a for each, but well, actually I did, but putting them in, again, the idea of an array with objects. So actions, right? So when you're looking at that button content, and then it has an ID, so in case I need to set the ID. So in this case, here's the call to create that, and it's on the global scope because it needs to be done when the page loads. So I call for user state, okay, with for each, and then the callback is show user options. So I'm creating new buttons, I'm setting some classes and some IDs, nothing really different from the last example except I don't do as much of it here. And then set also the action, meaning the content on the button, and then I append the new button with this content, and then I place or append that button into that ID location in the DOM. Okay, so that's the way I use my second implementation of this idea. And you can come up with your own if you want. I will show you the other thing I started working on because I have some other ideas about this, but when the user logs in, I actually have the other two buttons going away, and I implemented the blog after I did this, but let me just show you what I did. Is on my add event listeners for each of them, I did that same concept where I referenced the items by their ID, but then basically did a threw them away, said top dot remove child, right? So I built up so it could know specifically which one I wanted to do that to. So then when you click on login, the other two items will go away, and that's what this is. And I was just starting to implement this into the rest of it when I decided it's a time I give you guys a video, and then I'll work a little more on it before you see it tomorrow. Okay, all right, so I think that's pretty much what I wanted to show you. I think that hopefully gives you an idea. I will tell you well, actually I'll tell you tomorrow when I see you. And then for those of you taking this mostly in the online, I will tell you that I have been, even though the due dates are after class, I've been really grading the next morning. So long as it's in there before I grade the next morning, that's the most important thing I care about. All right, have a wonderful first day of week 9. Peace out.